Let me ask you something. You talked about in the past 200 years that, when they started writing all these articles and doing research as far as and leaving us out of it,
Right.
but 200 years back, Armenians were still there.
Right.
Like, how did they ignore us knowing that these people are ancient people being
Right.
there? Didn't we have leaders or
See,
academics or
we did.
intellectuals that could have said, hey, wait a minute, these are our lands.
Yeah, when you take out all the old scientific articles that were published in Europe, including in Britain and England, there was a lot of support on the Armenian language being the foundation of the Indo-European, but it's buried in documents that nobody really reads unless you go in there and look for it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I haven't seen any of our scientists being involved with the Europeans to do language comparisons across the Indo-European spectrum. Even the word Indo-European kind of is a misnomer, but let's say the Indo-European spectrum. I don't see any of us helping them guide through the similarities. Well, I mean, if you read about it, let's say one curious, aristocrat with all his money would go to India, and then, oh my goodness, I found 10 words that's similar to Greek. He funds his book, gets published. Now the other guy comes in, takes his book, uses it as reference.
Yeah.
You see, it's kind of a runaway train after that, especially when you have wealthy individuals who have the capability for them to travel, right, to go to Egypt, to go to Mesopotamia, and so forth. So they write certain things their own way, and they have, let's say, even a peer review, let's say, or support. It's also kind of have valid. You can have 10 people of your peers who may be wrong, and then they support what you're saying. It doesn't mean that the entire group is right? Even if they do cross reference and cross checks, because once you say Hittites did this and then they attacked here and then Armenians came from the north and all that, now it's like an alternate reality.
Yeah, because it's just an inclusion of like some little snippet.
Yeah, and then the audience has no idea basically whether
Yeah.
you're right or wrong. They just follow whatever you're saying.
Yeah.
Urartians came, and then Armenians came and invaded Urartian lands, and then they took their language and everything else.
Which
It's,
I've heard somebody ask me about before.
It sounds
I'm like,
dumb. It sounds dumb, but how
Yeah.
would the student know the difference when you have a professor who's saying all that and he writes it down because there's a test tomorrow, because he needs to get his bachelor's in history, because
needs
he's
to get an A on the test.
Yeah.
No, okay. So wait. I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier. Was some of our scholars and whatnot that look into these topics and discussions with European scholars that are also maybe trying to discover what really happened in that region. How much conversations are there? How much of like information is there exchanged?
Recently more.
Recently more.
Yeah, I've seen the last 5 years. I've seen a lot of Armenian professors from Armenia collaborating with, let's say, Italian archaeologists and so forth. And many of the recent scientific papers have been written about petroglyphs, Karahunj, Zoraz-Karer, and actually taking Karahunj and Zoraz-Karer further back in time to 12, 13,000, 14,000 years.
And I guess touching on Karahunj, I mean, I know if anybody's ever watched, I don't know if you watched, but it was mentioned in Ancient Aliens that was on History Channel, and from then on I started hearing more and more about this, right? Like ever since then, oh man, Armenia was mentioned on History Channel and blah blah blah, right? Have you noticed maybe because of that there was some sort of influx, or did this kind of start prior to this?
See, the thing is,
right, because we know how much media impacts
of course.
Interests.
Yeah, I mean the idea of Armenia, yes, but the more intellectually honest people come forward just to re-examine something, not even nothing new examining, just re-examining what was written, they can see a huge problem that is like an elephant in the room and nobody's talking about it. So they take the initiative to examine it and so forth. and they realized that there's so much Armenian influence in language and culture, throughout the world, and we have very new authors now who are collaborating with the Armenian professors to realize that, my goodness, even Armenians have influenced Scotland and Ireland and so forth, and ancient words and so forth, which can only be described with the Armenian language. And I have always made the point of saying that because Armenia is so old, the language itself contains the history of those people just in the language alone. The USB flash drive that we have?
Yeah.
You can think of the Armenian language and its alphabet like a flash drive of information. We just need to take it out. The more we examine it, the more we can find. We can find a huge information load into a small snippet just for us to examine the language parallels in between nations.